Welcome to week 4 lecture videos. In week 4, we'll be covering chapter 16, sampling designs and procedures. All of you know that in the last few weeks, we discussed about different stages of research process, developing research ideas, research objectives, translating research objectives into research questions. We learned about developing questionnaire. So now it's time to learn how to select a sample. There are 5 learning objectives in this chapter. So as usual, there will be 5 separate lecture videos on each of these learning objectives. And in these learning objectives, I will be talking about the first learning objective, explaining reasons for taking a sample rather than a complete census. So I'll start with sampling terminology. Population, population element, census, sample, what do we mean by them? When we say population, we actually refer to a complete set of phenomena, a complete set of entities. For example, students, managers, politicians, journalists, teachers. So these are populations. And you understand that in a particular population, the population elements will share a common characteristics. For example, when you say students, their common characteristic is they are students. When you say journalists or managers, their common characteristics is they're journalists or they're politicians. Population element, each individual in a population is called population element. For example, when you say students, each student in a population is population element. Now, census, when we examine or when we research the whole population, then we call it census. Like if we focus on all the students or all the managers or all the politicians, then it is census. Whereas sample is a subset of the population. So sometimes it's not economically viable, or it's not viable in terms of time that we examine the whole population. So our research focuses on a subset of a population. The subset of a population is called sample, and the sample is selected in such a way so that it reflects the pertinent characteristics of the population. Now the question is, why sample? I already have said that sometimes it's not economically feasible, or it's not feasible in terms of time to research the whole population. That's why you go for sample. So the pragmatic reasons are budget and time constraint. Our resources may not support that we focus all the elements of a population. For example, if we are researching on Australian managers and we include all the Australian managers, you know that you will need a lot of resources. Also, time may not support us. For example, if a master's student's doing a master's thesis, it's neither time nor budget will support to do a census. Another reason is limited access to total population. Sometimes it might be possible that you do not have time constraint or budget constraint. Still, you go for sample because you do not have access to a whole population. For example, let's say that Ford is going to survey its customers. Now, definitely they cannot go for population. They have to go for sample because some of their customers will not be accessible. Probably they have changed their address, probably they have left country, or some of them are simply missing. So they will have to use sample. Another is accurate and reliable result. Apparently, we may think that population, using the whole population, I mean census, will create more accurate result because it focuses on the whole population, whereas sample only a subset of the population. However, it might be possible that when we go for census and focus on the entire population, due to large number of population elements, there can be some errors occurring. For example, interviewer mistakes, tabulation error, or other non-sampling errors. However, if we take a sample due to a relatively smaller number of sample elements, and due to more supervised environment, probably we can reduce these interviewer mistakes, tabulation error, and other non-sampling errors so that sample can produce more accurate result than population. And destruction of test units. When we go for sample, particularly in the case of like quality control, it is more feasible, because if you go for census in a particularly like quality control type of test, if you go for census, you will have to test all the units, and you will end up having nothing. For example, let's take an example of firecrackers. A company produces firecrackers, and it wants to test that each firecracker met a certain standard. Now if it goes for census and start testing firecrackers, then it will end up nothing to supply to the market. That's why the company will first to go for sample and probably testing only few of the production elements. So these are the reasons a researcher will go for sample rather than population. So this is the end of this learning video. Please see the next video for a discussion on learning objective 2. Thank you.